Welcome everyone to our webinar about fundraising. That's been one of the big questions that's been asked from the very beginning, is how our team's going to fundraise for the Space Challenge, realizing that it's going to require a lot of financial resources and material resources. So we have some panelists today who are going to share their experiences with you and some successes. And at the end, we'll have a chance for everyone to ask questions and also share other stories that you may have about what's worked for you in fundraising. So we're going to start off with Max Goldberg from University of Wisconsin-Madison.
How's it going, everybody? As Christine mentioned, my name is Max. I'm from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the UW Space Race team. I'm currently serving as an entrepreneur in residence and advisor to the team, and after co-founding the team with a few other guys this summer. So I will just jump into it. Before I do that, let me just give some context for my background. So I did the SpaceX Hyperloop competition. I was the battery team lead over there for 2 years. And I also did some fundraising and marketing at the precipice of the competition, or at the start of the competition, so that we can actually get off the ground, because we didn't really have anyone to specifically work on that. All of us engineers needed to step in. We ended up raising $120,000 approximately, plus some in-kind donations. For that first competition, I raised between $20,000 and $30,000 of those dollars. I've also done some other fundraising for my own ventures, and I do some entrepreneur in residence work outside of this project, and some organizations across the country, in California and in New York. So the first point that I wanted to talk about, and the first thing that came to mind when Christine asked me to present on this webinar, was crafting your narrative. Each team has a really unique narrative to tell, and fundraising really boils down to storytelling and being able to tell a compelling narrative about what you're doing to guide and inspire people to understand your vision. To do that, I highly recommend identifying your community. Identifying your community really allows you to target your messaging and target this compelling story that you're telling. So who is your community? And your community doesn't have to be the entire US. It doesn't have to be the whole aerospace industry. It can really be a more grassroots community that's more local to where you are. So for example, Wisconsin has a really extensive history, of space and space industry that's kind of underutilized and kind of undersold right now. So Jim Lovell, who was one of the astronauts on Apollo 8 and the commander of Apollo 13, the Apollo mission that was the first one to circumnavigate the moon, and then the second mission was the one with the failure that Tom Hanks made a movie about. Jim Lovell's an astronaut who went to our university. There's like 10 or 12 other prominent astronauts who went to our university. Wisconsin's #1 in several aerospace manufacturing subsectors. We have a really extensive and rich culture of aerospace here that's underutilized. So we're really trying to tell a compelling narrative around there. The last thing I'll note on narrative is it's not just the fact that you're building a rocket that's important. It's also the fact that you're building a rocket to, win the competition, and you have this big pool of winnings, this $1 million that you can then work to strategically deploy as part of your narrative. What are you going to do with that money? Why are you actually competing in this competition? Who's benefiting? Who's getting educated as part of building this rocket? So there's a lot of interesting ways that you can spin your story and create a narrative around this space challenge, and it's really a moonshot in its own right. So next, the next thing that I really wanted to talk about is aesthetics. I think that aesthetics are essential to any good marketing and fundraising campaign. In 2018, there really isn't a reason why things should just not look gorgeous, particularly look really crisp, sharp, and professional in everything that you do. There are a lot of free tools. There's an abundance of free tools that are really easy to use to make your designs look really, really nice. Everything from Canva, which is a free kind of graphic design tool, and if you need to pay, it's really, really inexpensive to download some of their images, to WordPress, which you can use to rapidly spin up your sites, your websites, and test your websites. There's a lot of other design tools out there that you can Google and find, particularly on your university's campus. I mean, most universities have Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop for free. So there's a lot of tools that are really easy to use that you can download, make really beautiful designs really quickly. And the last thing I'll note on aesthetics, bringing it back to telling compelling stories, a really big part of compelling storytelling is visuals. A lot of people are really visual and they don't really get so much from text or even audio. So making sure that you're telling your story through graphics and pictures as well as in addition to the text, but you don't need to write a 1,000-page novel to get your point across. You can have one really succinct graphic or 3 really succinct graphics, and that can tell the same story as a 1,000-page novel. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was delegation and learning and experimenting. So we're all here, we're all new to in the relative scope of things. So the delta between the most experienced person and the least experienced person is pretty negligible when you look at the larger span of a career. So we're all at the beginning and the inception of our careers. So it's really important that you recognize that. And in my opinion, that you delegate to other younger members of your team who don't necessarily have as much experience as you do, either as an engineer or someone in business or an entrepreneur. Mainly because these fundraising skills, while it's challenging to fundraise, it's pretty simple. I mean, there's not a lot of complexity involved in fundraising. There can be, but for simple fundraising techniques, it's pretty straightforward. So anyone can really pick them up. And the only way that you really pick it up is if you go experiment and you experience and you learn on the job and while you're doing it. Experimenting also helps you as a leader learn from people beneath you, because, or however your organization is structured, horizontal or vertical to you. Because experimenting, people will innovate, and people will innovate with fundraising techniques, and then you can learn those fundraising techniques. You can deploy them forward in your organization, and you can also deploy them forward in your own career later on, which is really cool. So you can view fundraising for a competition like this as a massive experimentation platform where you have a lot of people who are kind of green and don't have any, predetermined or pre-instilled biases in the fundraising techniques that they're using. So experimenting, taking an entrepreneurial approach to fundraising, and really importantly, delegating to free up your time and to have an army of fundraisers rather than just yourself trying to go fundraise from everybody. So that's all I have from the presentation. I think we're taking questions at the end. So I will just quickly give you guys a peek into our deck, because I think Christine wanted us to just show you through our deck, because I think it looks pretty. And I think Christine also thought it looked pretty pretty. So you can see our rocket in the back over there, just kind of displaying like we have something that we're building, we're working towards. One thing that I really liked hitting on at the start of our deck is that we really explicitly state our mission and our quote unquote massively transformative purpose to get people excited. So that's more than just be the first to space and we're going to space. It's really ignite new space in Wisconsin and invigorate this space startup ecosystem in Wisconsin, and then also to empower UW engineers. And with those 2 points, it's a little bit more massive than just being the first to space in a more human way that people can relate to and understand. And being first to space is also pretty cool. We go through our leadership team. We talk about our advisors. I think advisors are really critical. Who you have backing you, it gives you some more credibility and brings you closer to the credibility line that you need to actually fundraise for a project like this. One cool thing that I'll note in our deck is one little tactic that we apply is you scroll down and the first thing you see is $150,000 to name our rocket, which is pretty crazy. I mean, we're going for someone to name a rocket, but for the average person, that's going to be a crazy number. And then they scroll down, they see $75,000. Oh, that's not so bad. It's not so much relative to $150,000. $50,000 is even less. $35,000. Oh, that's really reasonable. And then they come here and they come to our more tiered system, or a more well-defined tiered system, and they get to $20,000, like, oh, wow, I can do that. That's manageable for our company. If someone else is going to be donating $150,000, I can get in for $20,000, and just maybe bumps up how much money you're going to be able to get from each entity. I'll also quickly just show you guys our website, uwspacerace.com. So we have a blog over here with our status reports, which I think is really valuable. And yeah, that's about it. You guys can go check out our website as you want. You can also reach us at contact@uwspacerace.com. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Other than that, I'll hand it back to Christine. Thank you so much for your time.
So next we have Walker from University of North Dakota, who has some very great experience with gifts in kind and getting materials donated. So I'll let him share that with you guys.
All right, hey guys. So let me get this going here. All right. So a little bit about myself. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm a junior here at the University of North Dakota. I'm from a small town in Minnesota. It's called Bagley. I work at LM Wind Power, which is a General Electric business, and I'm the CEO of the UND team. So here's a little introduction on what I'd like to talk about. So some aspects are timing, body language, project explanation. Building professional and personal relationships is very key. Finding a unique situation for your project. Return the favor to businesses, and persistence. So timing and body language. My main thing that I find is when you go in to visit them, make sure you ask to see if they have 10 minutes or so to talk. Usually if they have 10 minutes, you can bump that out to 20, 30, however long you want. If they can't, try to schedule an appointment, come back. Don't just take the email, easy way out. It's really easy to ignore emails and phone calls, so just keep coming back to them. When you actually do introduce yourself, express confidence in yourself, sit forward in your handshake, and be excited about your project. I believe Max talked about that. Keep the conversation rolling by talking about who you are, a little bit about your college. Don't talk all about the project because it is very overwhelming, especially in areas that don't deal with aerospace very much. Read their facial expressions. So if they kind of look glazed over or whatever, relax your body language a little bit, sit back, just let them ask some questions too. That's very helpful. So personal and professional relationships. So I work at LM Wind Power. I do a lot of their design work. I personally know a lot of businesses around town that do manufacturing for me. So I know their kids, I know their personal life. I've gone fishing with some of them. So try to build that relationship. Use other team members that have that type of relationship. It's a really big advantage. They're going to trust you. That's very important, especially when you're dealing with money or gifts. Talk with your professors also. They should have a lot of contacts in industry, especially if they're doing research. We found that very helpful. And really just make sure they're comfortable working with you. So unique situations. This is probably one of my biggest things that I've been able to find is you got to be creative. So in our area, we don't have a lot of aerospace related stuff here. We do have one company called Cirrus Aircraft, but that's not a rocket, so it's a little different. But find something that they can help you with. So Cirrus uses carbon fiber, so they're going to provide a lot of our carbon fiber for our project. LM Wind Power uses fiberglass. Might not be something that we want to use on the final rocket, but we need to practice. And also once you get involved with them, they might be willing to donate more as you build that relationship. Machine time, that's very key for us. We do have machines here on campus, but not a lot of them. So finding someone in town that has CNC machining capability, especially 5-axis, is very, very helpful for us. And then find other ways. So materials, machine time, event sponsors. So if you're going to do an outreach event in the summer, see if they'll sponsor something, give a prize to someone or something like that. We've also done some university funding. So tonight we're actually cleaning a sports stadium. So we get some funding from the university that way. And then in your union, ask if you can set up a booth and sell some popcorn or something like that. It helps get people involved in the project, and you get a little stuff back. So returning the favor. So I guess some of you have probably thought about putting a logo on your rocket. So Max had that also, offer logo space. We are a lot of engineers, so we do know how to use CAD. So if some of these companies need some quick CAD work done for them, don't be afraid to offer that to them. Give them a scale size of your rocket. We've actually thought about 3D printing little mini models of our rocket to give to them. Promote them at your events. So on your websites, wherever, thank your sponsors. If you're out and about, just mention them. Usually universities provide a tax break. I know ours does. So if you're going to get physical items donated to you, have them converted into a cash cost, and then they can get a tax break back for it. Or if they donate to the university, they should be able to get a tax break. And then when you're out and asking for funding, don't just ask for funding. Really explain what the project is good for the community. One example is outreach events. As you can see in the picture there, that's my dad's 6th grade class. We launch water rockets every spring with them, and we intend to do that for this challenge also. And most importantly, when you're working with those companies, keep them in the loop. Don't make them feel like it's a one-time deal. You want to make sure they're still involved. have them meet your team members and everything like that. Persistence. Don't be shy. Talk to everyone. And I mean absolutely everyone. When you're out to eat, if the manager comes up to you, just talk to them about the project. You will get some donations that way. Accept smaller donations, even if they don't really apply to you, because you might be able to work your way up to something else. And again, if they don't apply to you, just find a use for them. Make them feel like they're necessary for your project. Target more than one level at your business. So when I go in and talk to people, I usually start with the secretary and I explain everything before I even ask for someone higher up. This really helps get multiple levels in that business, gets the bug in their ear essentially. So you have someone down low talking about it and is excited about it, and then you have the higher up that sees that and they're like, okay, maybe we should really look into this a little bit more. If you get turned down, ask for contact information, send them an update on what you're doing if that's all right with them, but don't get stuck on that one team or that one business. Keep moving around, and keep in mind it's a really long project, so they might change their mind, especially once they see some other people donating. Make sure to mention your other donators. This is really big for us too, because industries are trying to compete, so they want their logo, they want to be branded other places. And finally, if you do get turned down, don't get disheartened. If they don't have interest, just thank them and keep moving on. That's the biggest thing for me, is you just got to keep moving on. That's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's just a really awesome example of being kind of creative and getting a lot of donations that are not monetary. And I think that there's a lot that teams can do with that as well. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, all about cash, I'm going to turn it over to Matt at UCLA. So over in the fall, toward the end of summer, they ran a really compelling online campaign for cash that was pretty successful, and it caught my eye on social media. So I asked Matt to come and share a little bit about that with you guys today. So Matt.
All right. So can you everyone see it? All right. So my name is Matthew Pells. I'm the CFO for Rocket Project and our business director for our Space Challenge team. So a lot of the first two presentations from Max and Walker were more conceptual. I'm going to talk about the specific ways in which our club raises funds and what has worked for us, some lessons learned. So first, I'll talk about crowdfunding. Christine mentioned our crowdfunding campaign that ran from mid-September to mid-October for about 30 days, and we were able to successfully raise $25,000. And then I'll talk about monetary donations from corporations, material donations, and then school programming funding. I don't know if every school has this, but we apply to just general student group funding, not just for engineering clubs, but for any club on campus. So first was our crowdfunding campaign. So as I said, we raised $25,000 from September to October. So we used a platform that was available to us through UCLA. It's called Spark. That was a UCLA platform where student groups run campaigns all the time. So a few things. I think our biggest challenge in that is getting everyone to participate, all of your members. What you need, if you're going to raise that amount of money, you need every single person on your team talking to everyone they know, all their family members, friends, reaching out, getting views on your videos, getting more clicks. All of that helps, and it's really a momentum thing. Number two thing we did, we offered perks for all our donors. So if you donate $100, you get a t-shirt. If you donate $50, you get a flight tag. And it goes up from there. $1,000, we're going to invite them to one of our launches. So those are really cool. It's, not necessarily something that's going to make someone donate, but it shows your appreciation for their donations. And also targeting club alumni. If you can, reach out to your engineering alumni association, the department, see if they can send you an email, share your campaign. That really increased our visibility. The engineering department sent an email out to their whole email list advertising our campaign. So that was really beneficial. And then the biggest thing I would say, the best way to convey your message, especially when it comes to rocket science, is videos. I think the universally cool thing is a rocket launch. You know, everyone can understand that. So showing videos of your launches, your tests, I think that's huge and something everyone should definitely focus on. So monetary donations. So for these, it's difficult to get large corporations to sponsor you. We really rely on the relationships that UCLA already has. Like, for example, Boeing, they give a blanket donation to the entire university. And so we reach out to the university to try to get more of that. So that's really a nudge type of business. So you can talk to external affairs, try to get them to support your club more and more. And, you know, it takes time, but if you develop a relationship with these outlets, like our external affairs department, who handles all of these relationships, that really helps. And then emphasizing sponsor exposure. They talked about, Walker and Max talked about the logo space on the rocket. You want to convey to them why they should donate, whether it be access to your members for recruiting, or just logos on rockets and on websites. You really want to emphasize that. And also a unique way I think I've found is at career fairs. If you're talking on your resume about the club you're in, and you mention, you know, you are involved with donations, reaching out to companies. That's what I did my freshman year last year. I didn't really have anything on my resume to talk about, but I told them, like, oh, hey, you're Raytheon, you're one of the companies on my list that I have to reach out to. And he gave me his email. He's like, oh yeah, just email me, you know, send me your sponsorship packet and we'll see what we can do. So that's a way that I've found that's kind of unique, but it's possible. Third, material donations. Walker talked a lot about this. You really want to target smaller suppliers. So every week we send out updates for all our different teams, what the sub teams need, materials. So from that, I look at that, what vendors they want to use, and then try to reach out to these small companies. A lot of times phone calls are the best way. You will get a real person on the line. You can find someone to talk to. We got a stick of graphite donated for our nozzles through, I just called the company and told them our situation. This is the part we were looking at buying already, and just asking, like, could you help us out with this? And another way is, you know, a lot of times there's not an email on the website, but there always is a space to ask for a quote. So I've gone through there, and in my quote said, oh, hey, we're a student engineering club. We'd really appreciate any help you could give us on this item that we're going to purchase already. That, you know, just asking for a discount is something you can do all the time. And then lastly, our school programming funding. So, you know, I don't know your situation, but on our campus, to apply for this funding, you have to have some type of program, as it says, an educational program that's going to benefit the campus as a whole. So the most important part of this is communicating to non-engineers, whoever's giving them funding, why this is going to benefit the campus, why you should fund us, show them past examples of where this has worked. So this is a picture of our educational program. This was a few weeks ago. So they build small rockets in teams of 2 to 3 to launch at the end of the quarter. So we advertise that it is a program that's free of charge. anyone, any major can build a rocket and launch it. And so that's how we advertise it, and that allows us to apply for this funding that normally engineering clubs don't get much of, to be honest. So you want to make clear your goals for the program, and numbers are always a good way. We always advertise, this many people participated last year, and then we had a retention rate of this percentage that actually joined our club and are actively gaining experience. So I think Christine, she wanted me to show you guys our platform for the crowdfunding. Let me, computers. Let's see. You guys can't see that, huh? Hold on a second. All right. You guys still can't see it, huh?
If the link is something that can be viewed off campus, is it, or is it, if it is, you can put it in the chat box and people can access it there.
Okay, yeah, I'll show that. You can check that out. That's all of our, you can see all our fun, or our tiers for perks and stuff like that in our videos. So the last thing I didn't say was my number one tip is that to remember that companies generally aren't sponsoring you for charity. They're not going to give it always out of the kindness of their heart, but it's going to be what's going to benefit them. So what you want to do is tell them how explicitly why they should sponsor you and why it benefits them. So that's something you always want to think about when you're talking to these companies. It's not necessarily about your engineering, what specific projects you're doing, but the numbers, how many people they're reaching, how this is going to benefit them. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. If you want to take that link, Matthew, and in the chat down at the bottom, you can click to open the chat and you can stick it in there and share it with all the guests. There we go. So now people have the link and they can click on it and look at it their own. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Chase now from University of Alabama, who is going to kind of touch on all of the things that have been talked about and how they've incorporated them in their fundraising and their fundraising program at Alabama.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so real quick, my name's Chase Trautman. I'm a senior, I'm studying mechanical engineering, and I'm the project manager for ARES, which is Alabama Rocket Engineering Systems. It's just a quick presentation about the different ways we seek funding. So we have 4 main ways that we seek funding. The first being corporate monetary donations, second being material and fabrication. Third, we do like some independent fundraising campaigns, both with our school and like at local restaurants and businesses, stuff like that. And then I'm also going to touch on a little bit of the team networking and like presence management on your campus, which I think is something that's really important. So for monetary donations, the way we kind of do it is we kind of think that starting as early as you can is beneficial. So over the summer every year, we develop a company contact list of every single company that we want to hit with a planned point of contact and then a goal, which can either be cash, it can be material, it can be fabrication, or it can be just technical consulting or advising. And once the school year starts, we have to take this list to our university's like strategic communications department. Basically, like they look and see if there's any companies that they already have relationships with that donate a lot of money, and they take that off of like our independent contacting list. So once that gets approved, we go ahead and send out our business brochure, which is basically like our pitch deck. And then we also have a 1-pager handout specifically on our team demographics. This is particularly more effective when you have the business on campus and you have like a table set up and that kind of setting. but we do occasionally send it as well if like a team or if a company's certain donation platform relies heavily on outreach, or they like to see demographics like that. We do send that sometimes electronically as well. And I also have like little boxes throughout just for you guys to read how much we typically raise by each method. So you guys can go ahead and check that out too. So I just kept some of the key slides from our pitch deck in here. So every year we have one page that kind of details what both of our project teams are doing. So I'm sure like a lot of you guys, we have a solids and a liquids team here at Alabama. So we kind of have a rundown of like what each team's goals are on one slide. And then on this, there's another one I like to show too. This is our sponsorship levels and some of the benefits that we do give to companies. We also list our budget because we like to show where their funds are actually going and what we need the most help in, we think. And this can be pretty rough at the start. Obviously, this one is from like way over the summer. We haven't done like a base 11 specific one yet, although we are planning on doing that. But we do have it laid out to see kind of where we need the most help. And then we also have, it's also customized for every person on our business team. So you see like my contact information at the bottom. We change that to everybody. Everyone has their own unique one. So they get placed in charge of a company, and we really kind of want them to do that completely on their own and develop like a personal relationship with that company. So that company's not having to worry about like multiple points of contact or anything like that. It's just one person that's like over the entire thing. So here's our like one-page demographic sheet. The real focus for this was to have as many numbers on here as possible, kind of make it eye-catching. So this has been, like I said before, really helpful in like tabling settings where we have like multiple companies coming up to like a student organization booth at like either a recruiting event or we have like something called E-Day where all the engineering teams are like out on the quad and like local high school students can come. Some businesses come by, and we always have this out there. Just a nice touch to the table and something that's easy to hand out and get a quick glance of like who we actually are as a team, not really our goals per se, but something that a lot of companies do like to see. Also, I think outreach is really important. So we always put a number of how many people we hit per year on there. So we have like a pretty big outreach project called Tuscaloosa Rocketry Challenge where we build water rockets with like 12 middle schools in the Tuscaloosa area. It's a week-long ordeal at each school, and then there's like a final launch competition on our campus. So we hit around 5,000 students every year with various outreach. So that's something that we found a lot of companies really like to see as well. So now I'm going to move into how we go about getting material and fabrication donations. So like I said before, when we assign this company a goal, or when we assign each company that we come up with that contact list a goal, some of it is material and fabrication. And what we found is it kind of relies a lot on your relationship with the manufacturer year to year. So we go to pretty much the same machinists every time we need something machined. And we kind of get it for like an increasingly better price. Because like one year we bought a graphite nozzle from a company online that machined it for us, and they gave us like, it was basically full ticket price. And we've gone to them like 3 years straight now. So now we can get them for extremely cheap. And we typically buy multiple of the same nozzle a year just so we have it. So we found that like it's really important to develop that relationship and kind of work with the same material donors every year and the same fabrication donors every year. Not to say that you shouldn't pursue other ones, but we found that if you pursue the same ones over and over again, they'll increasingly give you more breaks. The other thing I like to hit on real quick too is like a lot of times material donations require a specific need. So we try to shore up any design choices as soon as we can as well, so that we can go ahead and know the exact item that we need to request. Because usually if you just ask for a specific item, we've had zero problems with them just giving it to us or giving it to us for a really large discount. And we've also found out that like our overall donation process, we are like tenfold more successful by asking for specific components versus like just saying, okay, we want you guys to donate a ton of cash. You kind of need some of both, obviously, but we found to be, we've had much more success getting just normal material and fabrication donations. So now getting into some of our like actual fundraising campaigns, we only have 2 like restaurant benefit nights. We do one at Chipotle because the fundraising percentage is really high, and then there's like a local taco joint in town that also has a really high percentage, and like they're kind of famous for their margaritas, so we get a percentage of the alcohol sales as well. So we typically raise a lot of money there every year. Something I like to talk about too, similar to Matt at UCLA, we also, for the first time last year, participated in a crowdsource campaign. So this was something completely new to our school. And I'd like to really like shout out the importance of maintaining a good connection with your engineering department or whatever department you're affiliated with. Pretty much the way Bama Blitz worked was one student organization from every single college. So College of Engineering had one student org. They would nominate them, and then they would be the recipient of this big 24-hour crowdsource campaign. So we got picked. Basically, we pitched along with Formula Car to like our College of Engineering, and we actually got picked over them, which is pretty big for us because you know, we're a relatively new team. We've had like 3 consistent years now, so that was really big for us, and we were able to raise around $12,500 in that 24 hours. And that was a really effective method for us. And really the only reason we got even selected for that was just kind of the relationship that we maintained with the college. And then we've also had thoughts to maybe do like a dollar day or something similar if your school doesn't have a fundraising campaign. I know like our dance marathon does like dollar day, where they just like post on all their social media, and there's like, okay, donate, if every single person donates $1, well, it's so much more money. So that's something we're looking into for the future as well. And then real quick, it's super, super important to maintain good, clean looks, like Max was saying, in all your materials. So we have like, obviously like a common colorway, a slide deck, logos, stuff like that. We also like to do some industry presentations every year where we present to like a board. So this upcoming January, we're heading up to the Huntsville, Alabama area. There's a lot of aerospace up there. And we have a lot of companies coming to attend that, where we're kind of give them like a big design briefing on where we're at currently. We also have like a Space Days event in our school where all these companies come to our campus, and we basically talk to them about maybe coming in and sitting in on this review. And then just one like final advice: no matter what opportunity you have to table, you should do it, whether it's university recruiting, whether it's at an athletic event, whether it's specifically for getting donations. You should do it, because the more people that see you out there tabling, the more people are aware of your project, whether that's in your College of Engineering or not. We've done several like general, like university-wide tabling events, and you'd be surprised. Like, I mean, some people's parents just like work at a company and they're like, oh yeah, we can like totally help you out. We've gotten donations from that in the past as well. So we're into that kind of quick, so I wanted to leave time for questions. But yeah, I think that pretty much goes over everything I wanted to cover. So
awesome. Thank you, Chase. Okay, so you guys go ahead and start asking your questions. You can use the chat, or there's a Q&A box. You should be able to access both of those at the bottom of your screen. And please do ask questions, because I asked these guys to all cut their presentations short because I thought that the audience would have questions today. So the first thing I want to do, if I can, I'm going to try to enable Risto to chat, to talk. Oh, it says you're using an older version of Zoom. I need to promote Risto to panelist. Okay, wait. I'm going to promote you to panelist, Risto. Promote to panelist. He has something he wants to share about. Says you'll be rejoining the webinar as a panelist. He wanted to share something about opportunity. Oh, there you are. Hey, Risto. Can you I can unmute you. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so good job, guys. You have a lot of good ideas, a lot of similar stuff that my group has been doing. But there was one thing that I didn't hear any of you mention, so I wanted to make sure to bring it up. So there's this thing. How do I screen share?
At the bottom, there should be a little box with an arrow and it says share.
Here.
Now do you have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Desktop, share screen. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay. All right. I always do this weird split screen thing, so if it looks kind of funny to you, I apologize. But just one opportunity I really wanted to make sure you all know about. I'm pretty sure every state has something like this. You know, there's a Space Grant Consortium. You've probably heard of it. Make sure to take advantage of that. They prioritize student groups that are working on team projects like this, like national competitions. And this year, my group, we put in 4 different proposals, 3 of them relating to Base 11 and the other one relating to a separate project that we're working on, a satellite. And we netted about $30,500 just from that. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that this is an opportunity too, and it's not just for graduates. You know, it's rare to find undergraduate research sometimes, but this is a pool of funds that's typically set aside specifically for undergraduates to do projects.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I see a question here also from Max. For UCLA, how did you guys handle the distribution of the t-shirts and the flight tags for low money distribution and low money donations? And I'm going to add in there, I assume that there's concern about basically spending all of the donation on this process of distributing the little prizes to the donators. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Actually, funny enough, in an hour and 15 minutes, our perk distribution starts for all of our members here. So what we did is I've been doing the perk distribution. So first, like months ago, tried to work with guerrilla marketing, got a really cheap t-shirt price. First of all, that's the most important thing. And then flight tags we had already accumulated, had enough for our donors, thankfully. Then the stickers we offered, baseball caps went through Gorilla as well. So to give you an idea, like on the $100 t-shirt or the $100 donation, the t-shirt was $6. And so what we're doing is we had the ambassador program where it was, you know, you reach out to your network. So we're going to try to have the kids going back for winter break to actually hand deliver those donations to their donors. So that's a lot of them. Will hopefully be taken care of through that. The rest, unfortunately, I will have to take back home and mail this break. But that's starting today. We finally have everything in. It's been a long process, you know, because we had to pay for them through that money. So it was, I don't know, it was an interesting thing. But yeah, so we're trying to do as much as we can, just getting kids to hand deliver them, because it's a lot of parents that donated, a lot of family. So that's going to help with that. But yeah, that definitely is still a concern, because I'm not sure how many we're going to get picked up, but hopefully.
Okay.
Did you look into finding a drop shipper or a warehouse to ship it for you? And did you get quotes for that at all?
No, I mean, it wasn't, we had probably about 150 perks to give out. And the numbers as far as how many parents and like would go back, it wasn't big enough to justify doing that. I think it's not going to be a huge number. I think we'll be fine. Because it was mostly like grassroots donations anyways.
So it was people quite literally close to home.
Yeah.
Who were able to donate. That's good to know. All right, we have a question. How would you recommend that a team start to approach sponsors when that team is still in the design phase and doesn't have a lot to show off to sponsors? And I'll let any of you answer this, but maybe we'll start with Walker, because I'm pretty sure your team is very much in the same boat.
We're very much in that same boat. What I would do is I would try to print off a little flyer or something that gives a brief introduction to the Base 11 Challenge. Make sure you're credible. That's one thing I've always had them look up, is the Base 11 Space Challenge, so they can see you have a credible source. And then just show them some other things that your college has done in the past. You know, we've done some solid rockets. Make sure they're aware of that, and then just work your way into it. And then just keep coming back too, because a lot of times they're like kind of iffy on it right away, and then just offer to come back. That's my best advice I can give. So
I have a note there too. One thing that's really useful is if you don't have anything else to do and you don't necessarily have a design right now, you can just start writing blogs. Blogs are free to write, and content, so it's free to produce. Start putting content out and, you know, getting some credibility on your site and getting some nice SEO going. So that way when someone comes to your site, they're like, oh, what are these people doing? And then they see like 20 blogs that you've written, like, oh, these people are credible and they can actually go execute this. Another cool tip there is you can have your technical team members actually double purpose like the research that they're doing into blog format. So they can be doing research, they can be researching, say, nozzle design, and they can write like a knowledge-based article on nozzle design. So the dual purposes, it generates a lot of content, and then you also record the research that your team members are doing, which is really useful in the long run.
Max, you are a real marketer at heart. All about the content production. I see there's a couple other questions in here. So I think everyone can see this, but Max was asking if Spark was custom built for UCLA or if it's software that's available to anyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As far as I know, it's a UCLA platform. So there's a few full-time UCLA employees, one person we worked with one-on-one that works for the UCLA Foundation that runs the whole program. There is a lot of like analytical software. Like we got a lot of data like from basically the UCLA Foundation, to be honest, is using us to help them reach out to sponsors to the school. So they identify like, okay, this person is a high value sponsor. And then they go ahead and take that, I think, pursue that relationship outside of us. I'm just guessing that's what it is. And they take like, Spark takes 6.5% of the 25,000. And so I don't know how that compares. I don't know how much GoFundMe is, but like that's how much they charge us for their services, I guess.
I think to that point, I mean, there are other platforms like that, like GoFundMe and quite a few other competitors of GoFundMe that are available to teams to use as well. And one of the suggestions that Max had that I haven't had a chance to pursue yet, but was the idea of, you know, would Base 11 be able to maybe get a donation of a platform service that the teams could use from one of the bigger companies that does that. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And certainly something that we'd be interested in looking into a little bit more. I see a comment here from Risto that actually ties into a question that I was going to ask you guys. So he's suggesting that if people haven't already, to look at recruiting marketing students to help with fundraising and other promotional activities. And I have two questions along those lines. One is, do any of the teams have anyone who is not an engineer, who's on their team, who came from the business school or somewhere else specifically to help with that? And then my second part of that question is, who's the biggest staff resource on your campus? Again, not engineering related, but from the external relations or the development office, who helps you when it comes to trying to fundraise or find donors. So that's to all four of you.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit on that. Remind me the first question though, real quick. Sorry.
Do you have anyone on your team who's not an engineer?
Yeah, so we have, I believe, 4 or 5 people total now that are in the business college. 3 of them are marketing, 2 are finance. And what we do to recruit those students, they do work on our business team, obviously, and they do a lot of our promotional material. We always go at like the beginning of the year in the fall semester to like a sophomore level business class where students are trying to basically do the same thing we are, get experience within engineering, right? And, you know, trying to use what we learn here to market yourself for a job, internship, stuff like that. And we've kind of found that it's a little bit harder for business students to do that in like an applied role in college. So what we typically do is we go into a class and we kind of pitch like what we're all about and see if anyone's interested in using this real experience. Like we let them use it for like their personal portfolios, stuff like that. If anyone's interested in using like this kind of experience to help them in that search. And then the second question, so we have a strategic communications department at Alabama, as I'm sure most of your universities do as well. And everything we do sponsorship-wise has to go through them. So there is one person who's like director of strategic communications that we speak quite a bit with. There's also a separate person that handles websites. So like when we made our website, took it live, that had to all get approved as well. But they're very good at like targeting alumni who might be interested, or people that are affiliated with the university that are in high places that might be interested in helping you out. And they can kind of like guide you on getting them on campus. We've had a former like deputy director of NASA donate a lot of his money to us, and that was arranged through that department. He came for like a lab tour. We like took him around the campus as well because he hadn't been back in a while. So we do have a department at our school that kind of helps us with that.
I'll hop in here. Some of the rock stars that we had on Badger Loop were actually not engineering students. They were kind of more operations and business people. Business people are also really good at operations. If you can find someone like a supply chain program or a lot of colleges, they'll have their like industrial engineering program in the business school, or they'll have a like parallel mirror program in the business school, which is kind of nice. And those students are a little bit more technical and like more technical, complicated projects like building rockets. Then the next thing I'll say is, like Chase said, just going to more entrepreneurial students and saying, hey, we're a startup and we need marketing. That population is usually really open to it. One challenge I've faced is that business students tend to like to have a little bit more credibility behind the organization before they jump ship, unless you are pursuing those more entrepreneurial students. So for instance, on Badger Loop, I did the marketing and fundraising along with like 3 or 4 other engineers at the beginning. And then it wasn't until, the end of the first competition or midway, towards the end of the first competition and for the later competitions that we ended up bringing in, business people to go do the business side of things. And then we focus more on the engineering side of things. Just because engineers will get more excited about the engineering, and fundraising and marketing is something you need to do to be able to do the engineering.
So if I can also jump in, you all might not know, but I'm actually a supply chain major. So Max, totally with you there. Also, I heard you say, Chase and Max, it can be hard to recruit business students sometimes. Sometimes their interests don't align, or they want to see that credibility. I've had to do a lot of that public outreach and credibility, just like you have, to get things started. But one thing that I've found is, at least at my school, and I'm assuming other schools have something like this, but you can set up a credit by arrangement kind of thing for them. So I assume that you guys as engineering students, you're able to do at least some of your work for the projects in class somehow. That's how we try to do that in our group, at least. But that hasn't been something we've been able to do with the business school because it's just set up differently. And then we found out about credit by arrangement, where students can go and they can find a faculty advisor within their major. And if they can convince that person to sponsor them, then they can actually get basically internship credit for doing the projects for your group. So that's an avenue that we've pursued for my group. I've got one marketing student doing that. I've got an accounting student looking into that, and an HR student looking into that currently.
That's awesome. I have one other question, and then I think we'll wrap up because we're just about to the top of the hour. But if anyone does have a last minute question, don't be discouraged. Please go ahead and type it in. We'll try to get to it. Someone mentioned like having a list of people to reach out to. And I think Raytheon was the name that was used. But how do you guys go about identifying the list of who would be potential targets? Keeping in mind that, like, of course, everyone's going to go after the same, 10 big companies, but you have local contacts and friends and family. So how do you start with what is the list of people that you should reach out to?
Go to your career services office, and they likely have a big binder of business cards with like 300 pages of business cards in it, and five or 6,000 different contacts, and have someone take pictures of it, and then send out those pictures to Fiverr and have someone on Fiverr digitize it into a spreadsheet.
That is a great idea. I can tell you've done that before.
Currently doing it right now.
There's a question that came in from Elvis at Arizona State. How do you reach out to the decision makers in the companies? Or do you?
Personally, I just ask for them right away. You go in and talk to them and just work your way up the ladder. Like I said in my presentation, you can't be shy. Going off of what Max said, we don't really have a formed list that we do. I just go talk to everyone, and I tell my team to do the same thing. So,
also networking events locally, like a very underutilized resource is non-university networking events in your area. So Madison has a pretty, extensive entrepreneurial community that's blossoming. So going to those events and just talking to people, and, not, when someone asks you, what do? You don't say, I'm a student. You say, I'm working on building a rocket to go to space. And then they're like, oh, what are you talking about? Someone's doing that in our town. And then that conversation escalates from there.
Great. Okay. Well, I want to especially thank our panelists for taking the time to share your information and your insights today. I know it's getting to the end of the semester, so a lot of people are heading into finals. So thank you for your time, and thank you to the attendees today also for your questions. For your colleagues who missed it, we will have a recording that we'll share online later. And don't forget that we have a webinar coming up on Monday about the 3D Experience platform. We'll have some leaders from Dassault there who will talk about how to get your team onto the platform. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good Friday.